Hey there, everybody. It's Cameron Morrissey coming to you again with another live Q&A session on leadership and management. Just taking that break in your day. If you've got a struggle, if you've got a question that has been gnawing on you all week long, go ahead, pop down into the comments and ask away. I'm here to help with those sorts of things. So it's another sunny day in Las Vegas, so I'm just thrilled to be here with everybody. One of the things I like to do to start these out is actually take a question from the last session that I didn't get a chance to get to. And one of the questions came in on how to be excellent in customer service and how to be successful in a customer service role. And I have a fair amount of experience in that background. And part of my advice is not surprising, and that's put yourself in the customer's shoes. To be successful in customer support, you simply figure out what the needs and what the wants are of the person that you're talking to and address those needs and wants with what you have available to you. That's a really simple way of doing it. But what I kind of wanted to get to is one of my big tricks. I spent years in the hotel industry. And so you deal with a lot of complaints as soon as you move up into leadership and management in those roles. And my best trick for handling complaining customers was to put myself in their shoes. And oftentimes they'd explain their story. And one of my first responses was, "Hey, Farmer Mike, good to see you here again. Crystal, good to see you as well." One of my best ways of handling that was when they told you what happened, simply say, "You know what? If I was you, I'd be just as mad, if not even more frustrated with what's gone on." And that immediately diffuses everything that's going on in their head. They know that you've heard them. They know that you understand their frustration. They don't really care why it happened. They want to know that you understand them and what the resolution is. So when you're in a customer service role, put yourself in the customer's shoes that way. That was one of the best ways that I would ever handle it. Hey, if I was you, I'd be just as frustrated as you are. So let's get this taken care of. So that's kind of the tip from last week's session. I know I didn't get a chance to talk about it here. We've got a bunch of people on now, so it'd be great. Pop down into the comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always nice to know that these leadership and management struggles are kind of universal and we're not alone in these struggles. And then if you have a question, drop those down as well. I also encourage everybody to really chime in with their thoughts on things. I don't pretend to have all of the answers to this, and I certainly am not going to broadly cover a particular topic. So you might have some tips on some of the things that I'm talking about or some of the questions that come in. And I'd love for you to pop those in the comment section. It just really helps round out the discussion. And you might hit on something that really resonates with whoever's asking the question. So the first question comes in. Mike asked the question, how do you become valuable if you are an individual contributor on a manager level? What you want to do, Mike, is really focus on serving those around you. I like to say that the easiest way to spot a leader in an organization is who everybody goes to with their questions, and when a crisis or emergency hits, who do people go to see what to do? Oftentimes that's not the person with the title in the department. It's the person that has over the weeks, months, years, shown that they are knowledgeable and that they are willing to be of service to those around them. Leadership is all about serving others and working through your team to accomplish things. That's the real trait in it. So if you want to be more value as an individual contributor, even if you're an individual contributor, you can help other people. You can give them, your tips. You can help them out in a particular area, offer your thoughts on it, and be a resource when they're in a crisis. Those are those opportunities to demonstrate the most important leadership skill, Mike. That's what I'd recommend there. Pistola, good to see you here. Winona, great. Magda, good to see you here as well. How do I deal? Miriam asked the question, how do I deal with an angry one? And, that could be angry boss, it can be angry employee. So the first thing that you want to do is you don't want to feed the anger. Oftentimes we get presented with anger and then we kind of puff up and we kind of match their tone and everything else, and what that does is that just continually escalates the conversation. So the first thing you want to do, whether it's a boss or whether it's an employee, Take an even tone and start bringing a thought process into it and a logic into it. So it may be, we might be able to tag back to what I initially talked about in this session and say, hey, I understand that you're frustrated about this. I would be frustrated too if I didn't understand this particular aspect of things. Okay, I probably wouldn't throw in the understanding the aspect of it because you're telling them they don't understand, but initially talk in an even tone and start trying to dissect it. Okay, well, let's solve this. What would you like to see happen? Or, what we can do in this instance, but move it into an intellectual thing so it takes it out of the emotion whenever possible with it. Now, if it's a boss, you may not have the opportunity to do that sort of thing. So a lot of times what you do is you simply smile and nod, and you let them kind of work through it. And in many cases, you have to kind of absorb that, and then you come back to it after a cooling off period and say, hey, just so you know, I know you're frustrated about it, but having that sort of emotional outburst isn't something that's going to be helpful in solving the problem. I know you're frustrated, but we need to work on it and solve it. And you can do that to your employee or your boss. Again, change the approach a little bit in either one of those cases. But that's how you handle those angry people, is don't feed it. Emulate the behavior you'd rather see in them, and then work them slowly but surely towards that sort of behavior. But Lashandra asked the question, when does leader get respect from subordinates? Leader gets respect when they give respect. It's really quite that simple. If you aren't respecting your employees, if you don't respect their thoughts, their opinion, their time, what they care about, then they are not going to respect any of those things from you either. So you need to, as a leader, get in tune with your people. You need to support them in handling their duties. You need to understand what their wants and needs are. You need to respect when they come to you with an idea, give it your attention, and then take action on it if you can possibly. But if you want to get respect from your team, if you're not getting respect from your team, then you are not demonstrating enough respect to your team. So start listening to them more, maintain that eye contact with them when they're speaking, and try to take action on what it is that they're saying. That's kind of the most powerful way of letting them know that you value them as an employee. But to get respect, you got to give it first. So, Joey, Lynn, good to see you guys both here. Kim asked a question, how do you respond to a customer who says there's nothing you can do to make it better and remains angry with you? Yeah, and hi, Cameron. In those cases, I take the action that I would take to make it better and move on. I understand, again, moving back to my prior life in hospitality, there are times where basically somebody's entire weekend was ruined for whatever reason. We don't have the room that they requested, whatever else. And in those cases, you do the best that you can. You get them a restaurant reservation, you get them a show reservation, you do what you can to make the rest of their stay better, and eventually they'll dial back from that. But take the action that you want to take, that you think is the best thing that you can do to make it better, and then move on from there. There's some people that you won't be able to recover, and that's another reality of customer support. I did a lot to my staff, but is still not happy. Yeah, he asked the question. So when we talk about morale and getting in touch with your employees and gaining their respect, a lot of these things take time. It's not something that turns around overnight. So you'll hear me talk about, say, motivation, and you want to talk about successes, and you want to catch them doing things right, not catching them doing things wrong. And that's great. That's the way that you build up a little bit of morale. You talk about those successes. You build that culture of success. But it doesn't turn around overnight. It's something that you need to be persistent in. Partly because your employees need to understand that you're serious about it. It isn't just some, flavor of the week sort of management technique that you're using, and you're going to go back to the way that things were, next week, next month. So part of it is them knowing that you're serious, but also part of it is just building up the effects of that good leadership. Good leadership pays off over time. In the short run, it can be a coin flip sometimes, but over time, it always pays off. So just keep with it, yeah. That's it. Do what you're supposed to be doing. Stand firm with your principles. Take that action that you think is best, and just keep carrying forward with it. Alicia asked the question, what do you do when upper management starts recruiting your employees for a new location? Now my store is losing a valuable employee. And Alicia, I'm going to go ahead and just flip this all the way around for you there, and I'm going to say congratulations. Congratulations that you as a leader have developed somebody that upper management has identified that they want for a new location, for an important project. Opening up a whole new store location is a big deal. It's a risk, and it's something that is truthfully of more importance than operating a store that's already existing. So congratulations that you've developed that sort of employee. If you are doing your job in leadership, if you are working with your team, if you're developing your team, you are going to lose them. You are going to lose your best employees, and you should be excited about losing those best employees. I always wanted to be the department that people went to poach great talent from. That's a demonstrable showing of you as a good leader. Now, what you need to do is figure out what it is that made that employee so valuable and see what you can do to bring that up and bring those same traits and skills into all of your other employees. It may be a certain training that you can do, but you're going to have turnover, and you're going to have turnover in great employees. At least they're staying within the same organization and they're not moving to another store, another department store, another chain in your environment. So it's tough to lose those good employees, but really look at the positive side of things and focus on bringing in the next best employee that emulates those traits of those successful employees. Really focus on those when you're looking to hire new people in. Lynn asked the question, how do you deal with a manager who shows favoritism in leadership, giving one manager more opportunities than another? And Lynn, that's one of the toughest aspects to deal with in leadership, and it's such a reality. I mean, we're human beings, and we naturally have this affinity for certain individuals over others. So it's something that great leaders always struggle with, is making sure that they're being fair on things and they're not letting that human and emotional side register. Favoritism is all about usually trust and what I'm getting out of it from the leader's perspective. So I use nepotism as an example all the time. Nepotism exists because people tend to trust their family members more than they do strangers. And they are also vicariously getting something out of moving one of their family members up in the organization. They're increasing the stature of their family, whatever else. So what you need to focus on is getting that trust with that manager, and also working on finding out a way to work on what is important to them. Make sure they're getting something out of it. And the way that you do that is you communicate more with that leader. So really focus on engaging them, keeping them apprised of what you're doing, and offering your services to help them. Get clear on what it is that they're important on. What is their boss hounding them about? What metrics are they held accountable for? Get in tune with those and find ways to help them deal with that. What you do when you be a resource like that is you tackle both of those things. The leader is getting something out of it. You're addressing a concern of his or hers, and you're also being able to show that you can be trusted with more duties. Now, it doesn't always work, but keep that communication up, find out what's important to them, and try to be a resource for them in those areas, and you'll be a little bit more of a favorite. The idea is that they're going to pass over that person that they like, they might be friends with, they might go have drinks with afterwards, because they're getting more out of having you in the new role that is promoted into. So that's the tough one of the toughest things to deal with in leadership. But tackle it with communication and figuring out what's important with them, Lynn. Islam asked a question: how do you have social intelligence and be a good communicator? And I love the question, actually, Islam. It's so important that in leadership we relate to people. One of the reasons that the struggle is so universal across the globe, whether you're in Australia or Burma or South Africa or England, is that dealing with people is tough. The way that you get better at dealing with people and understanding people and working on that social intelligence, as you say it, is practice. And it's not just practice, it is evaluated practice. So when you have an interaction with somebody and it goes particularly well or it goes particularly bad, it's important that you evaluate it afterwards. What did I say? How did it go wrong? How did it go right? What can I learn the next time that I do this? And it's that evaluation. Subconsciously, we've been doing this forever as human beings, but it really kicks into gear when you put the application in a business environment and you start thinking about how you are treating people and whether you're getting the reactions you want out of them. If you evaluate those things and if you practice your communication skills, you'll naturally start building that social intelligence. But kill it with practice and evaluated practice, Islam. That's the way to do it. Joe asked the question, best way to approach a problem with someone who had a chemical dependency issues affecting their work. Well, Joe, in a lot of cases, that's just a terminatable offense right off the bat. But I trust that since you say had a chemical dependency issue, what I would do is I'd work with that person and build up new expectations for them. So here's the expectations that every employee is held to. Clearly, this is what you need to be doing. All right, you're right here because of your skill level for whatever reason. This is our plan to get from here to here. And work with them on that plan and make it something that you are involved in. Not just, hey, I need you to work from shipping 10 units a day to working to 15, then to 20, because 20 is where you're supposed to be at. No, you need to come up with a plan. Here's how we're going to do that. We're going to evaluate this. Here's the milestone that we're going to get to. So to bring them back up, and you do this with any employee who's fallen on hard times, who's regressed as far as their performance. A lot of very experienced, tenured employees eventually just kind of get into a rut and their performance eventually starts slacking off. What you need to do is just get involved with them, come up with a plan to get them to that, and work that plan with them. Don't make them work it alone, work it with them, and that gives them the motivation and the understanding that you still value them as an employee enough to be spending your time and effort helping them get to where they need to be, Joe. But that's how I handle it. Any recommended books? Honest, that's a question. Any recommended books for leadership for new graduates? Two that I always point to are, and they're old classics, but they always, when I do polls of, your favorite business books, they always poll at the top, and that is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And then Dale Carnegie's a great one, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Being able to deal with people is hyper important. And then Covey handles it a little bit more from an individual perspective and how you can go ahead and manage your life. But it also has huge applications as far as your career is concerned. So those 2 books tackle those, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and then Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's the way to handle it. Rafiqal asked the question, what is green hat management? Rafiqal, I have no idea. No earthly idea. If somebody wants to pop down into the comments if they know what green hat management is, I know what a green belt is as far as Six Sigma is concerned, but I have never heard of green hat management. Next question comes in from Greg, and that's, how do I deal with senior leadership controlling how I lead my team? For consistency reasons, but it's not right for me or my people. Greg, what I try to get to is, what is the end result and the end goal that they're looking for? So, if what you want to do, and you do this as far as like any micromanaging boss, you want to focus on the goal. You want to focus on the what, not the how, all right, as much as possible. So get clear on what their what is. What's the end goal that they're looking for? And then try to show how to get to that particular end goal. It may be, again, my advice is always updates as far as micromanagement, because it cuts out all of the hovering that goes on. But see if you can do that from an update perspective. But also try to demonstrate, like I said, the positive. So from consistent, and I trust you've done this already with them, but if you can attach it to the end goal, maybe it has a little bit more power for them. And that is, this is my plan for reaching your particular goal, and this is the best use of my people because of this. If I do it this way, I'll still reach the goal. It'll just be slower with less quality, that sort of thing. But give them the reasoning behind your decisions. If they're clear on why you want to do it a certain way, they might give you a little bit more flexibility, but get hyper focused on what that goal is. The consistency reasons is likely a cop-out. The only valid reason I can see for consistency reasons is so that they have an easier understanding and easier control over the operation. And if that's the case, then you can go ahead and address that in other ways, whether that's updates, as far as keeping their control and their understanding in place, giving them additional reports, giving them some sort of information so that they have that, but you can also dive into the reasoning that they want that consistency. Ahmad asked the question, thinking of starting a new business, but hesitant, although I truly believe it will work. Any advice, Ahmad? Start it in your spare time. It's from 5 p.m. when you get off of work until 11 p.m. at night, you can go ahead and get started on it. The other thing that you need to have is you need to have the ability to be making next to no income for almost an entire year. To move forward with that. I get a lot of questions in regards to people that want to cut the day job, and you can do that. You can cut your expenses down to the bare bones, but you need to have enough stored up to where you don't need to rely on any income for at least a year. And really, 18 months is probably still best so that you can learn, because there's going to be an enormous amount of learning. The way to counteract that pain: work it on your nights and your weekends, and when it starts exceeding your current revenue as far as what you make at your current job, well, then you can cut the cord. Next question is from Brandon. It's, how do you address an employee who has constant bad attitude and can't seem to get a handle on it? So what I do is I get some specifics. So first, get your ducks in a row. Get some specifics for them as far as things that they took a particularly negative way that didn't need to be taken a negative way. And call them into the office. You want to call them out on their bad attitude and just simply say, hey, I noticed that, you're taking things kind of in a negative light, and, it's you're not enjoying the job and it's having an effect on the people around you. I just wanted to see what's going on. A lot of times it isn't work related. A lot of times it's personal related. That work-life balance thing works both ways. If you're having a crummy day at work, you can often have a crummy day at home. If you're having a crummy day at home, you can also have a crummy day at work. So it might be something outside of it. There might be something that you can do, but make them aware of it. And then open up that discussion in a way that shows that you care and that you're going to help them work through it. And see if you can come up with something that works for them. In the meantime, you can take those specific instances and say, hey, here's how you reacted to it. Here's how I'd prefer you to react to it. Or here's a way that would be a little bit more positive for you to react to it. Or, hey, and before you fly off the handle on that, come to me and ask a question, because you were actually mistaken on this. So many bad attitudes and misunderstandings in the workplace are just a lack of people really understanding what the true issue is, or all of the things that go around it. So see where that is, but have that heart-to-heart discussion with them. You can absolutely do that, but come up with some specifics first, tackle it in a way that is going to show that you're going to help work through that as well, so that they're not alone. Not just, hey, turn around your bad attitude and get better at it. Show that you're going to work on it as well, Brandon. Kim asked the question, how do you get employees to stick to work schedules? Well, you get clear on what the work schedule is, Kim, and then you start writing them up for not showing up to work. In so many organizations today, leaders and the management, their hands are tied as far as getting rid of employees. The only way to get rid of employees is to actually have them not show up to work enough times to work up the progressive discipline ladder. But you've got to show that there's some repercussions to that. The other thing that you can do from a positive side, so that's the negative, is to write them up, and eventually, it becomes a write-up, and then it becomes a 1-day suspension, 3-day suspension, and all of a sudden people are getting fired for not showing up to work and sticking to their schedules. The other way to do that is to focus more on teamwork, Kim. When people know that their friends at work are going to be put out because they're short a person when they call out, they are more likely to show up to work. They're also more satisfied in their work in general. So this gets at that, why are they not showing up to work? So try to work more team environment, try to work on the teamwork a little bit more. That can be team building exercises. Google it. There are a ton on there, and some of them will fit what your organizational culture is like. And a lot of them aren't too cheesy or anything like that. But do that, but then hand out duties in pairs too. So if you have a project or a task, don't give it to one person, give it to 2 people or give it to 3 people. And then when somebody doesn't show up to work, they know they have a practical application of, hey, I'm leaving the team out on this because we were going to work on that today. So that's another kind of sneakier way to work on team building exercises. But start writing them up, but work on the positive side as to why it is that they're calling out, work on those team building aspects of it. Eric asked a question. My supervisor just told the group that they will be leaving the company in a week. So how can I get to be her replacement? Great question, Erica. Love that you asked that. So what I'd first do is I'd go to her boss and say, hey, I understand that Mary, whatever her name is, Mary is leaving the company. I would be very interested in moving up into that position. When are you doing interviews? And so you let them know that you're interested in the position. You don't ask for an opinion right away, Erica. That's one of the keys to this. So they don't just shut you down. You get in for that interview. When are you conducting interviews to select her replacement? And then what you want to do is go over your resume and really hyper focus on accomplishments. Nobody cares about the responsibilities that you had. All of those responsibilities sound great on a resume, but it doesn't really matter. What we want to know from a hiring position is, what have you done and what results have you achieved? So if you've had some achievements, if you brought through some successful projects that impacted the operation, that's great. If you've trained people, that's great. But talk about what your accomplishments are and really have it focused on that. Now, if you're in the same company, what you really want to do is focus on the accomplishments that happened over the last month, 2 months, 3 months, recent accomplishments. They don't necessarily care about a year ago and 2 years ago. In your current company, they want to know, what have you done for me lately? So hyper focus on those particular things. Talk about how easy the transition is going to be to you, how you are going to affect the people, and talk about where you want to go. So you talk about the accomplishments that you've had recently, and then you talk about where you want to take the operation and the organization. I think we have great opportunities to do this, this, and this, and here's how I'd go about doing them. So you show that you have a track record of accomplishment within that organization, and then you show what you want to do. And so that builds a transition of, hey, if she's already done this and she wants to do this, there's no reason she can't. And you kind of answer that "what's in it for me by hiring you" question. So focus on your accomplishments, hyper focus on those, and then talk about where you want to take the operation and where the opportunities are. But Erica, please ping me offline on this if you have any thoughts on this, and let's get you squared away for this upcoming week. Next question comes in from Sierra. Good to see you here as well, Sierra. What recommendations do you have for someone making a career change? So much of it is culture fit, Sierra. So one thing that gets overlooked by people hiring people and then people seeking jobs is the culture fit in the organization, or what you're looking to do. So it's important that you ask questions on what the company's values are, how they match those values to what it is that that you will be doing in this particular position, and then why your position is important to the operation. If they can answer those questions well, then that's a good start, but get clear on some of the culture on things. Also ask questions about where people are developing. You don't want your career to be just a pit stop. Well, not pit stop, with some sort of permanent residence, a grave. You want it to be a pit stop on the way to the next thing. So one of the most important questions to ask is, for people who have this position, where have they moved in the company? So you want to know that you're moving into a position that has greater career potential, Sierra. So make sure you're clear on culture fit. Make sure you're clear on the progression in that particular position that you're looking for. And then, as I just kind of mentioned to Erica, hyper focus on the accomplishments and what you want to do in the organization, what you bring to the table. When you can demonstrably show that you've improved operations at prior positions, it's really much more powerful than just saying, I had responsibility over project management of such and such. So, next question comes from Katie. What kind of skills do management look for in being a good leader? Management overlooks me for some reason and picks those who don't work as hard. And Katie, a lot of it, I'll focus in on one thing first, and that is, it's not necessarily how hard you work. That's one of the biggest hiring mistakes when promoting somebody from a line level position to a supervisor position, is that they pick the person that's the hardest worker, that produces the most, but that person doesn't have the leadership skills to work in that new role. And so what you want to focus on is being of service to those around you. Like I say, you can always spot the leader because they're the person that people go to when they have questions, and when the emergency happens, they're the people that people go to, or they are the people that other employees go to figure out what it is that they're supposed to do. So focus on being a resource to those around you. Offer hints, advice, thoughts. When you see that they're stressed out, ask if you can take something off of their plate. When they start seeing you being more of a resource, that's more of a leadership role. All right, now I've covered those two basic things, but the most obvious thing is to go into your leader's office and say, hey, I'm really looking to move up in the organization. I'd love to move into a supervisor, manager, whatever that position is that you'd look to move into. Is there anything that I can work on? And what do you think that, what are the traits that you're really looking for? And they may or may not do much with that question. A lot of times they'll just say, oh, just keep working hard, and you'll eventually get your opportunity to move up. But what you want to do is 3 weeks after that say, hey, is there anything that I can take you off your plate? I know I'm really looking to move into that next position. Is there something that I could help you with to get off of your plate and to help me and move up in that role? Again, they might not say anything there, but then you go back to them every, say, 6 weeks or so after that, and you're not being a pest, but you're keeping yourself in top of mind. So focus on being of service to your peers, and then let your bosses know that you're interested in that next position as well, and that you're actively looking to gain the experience to move into that and be the obvious choice. Here I'm asked the question, how do I have courageous conversations? I think having courageous conversations, a lot of it is simply knowing that what you have is of value. The other person might not recognize it. Too much of the time, leaders don't recognize the value that the employees are bringing. But you have a perspective. You are of value to the organization, the people that you're talking to. And so it's important that you get clear ahead of time on what that is. And that's really kind of it. So you have something of value, but also be prepared. There's no reason that you can't prepare for a conversation ahead of time. When you prepare, that builds that confidence that you're going to have. So what are you going to say? What are the 3 points that you want to hit? What's the end result that you're looking for from the other person in that conversation? It doesn't often take more than 5 seconds in your head to say, hey, I want them to do this and I need to hit these 3 points. Okay, go. Hey, Jerry. And off you are. So get prepared, most importantly, but recognize you have value. The other person might not recognize it, and that happens too much. But don't rely on that. You have an opinion that's worthwhile. Prepare it ahead of time, and that'll help you start having a little bit more courageous conversations. Also, not for nothing on this, you also need more practice too. Communication is a skill just like any other, and if you want to have courageous conversations, you're going to need to practice, and you're going to need to evaluate that practice afterwards. Hey, that didn't go as well as I wanted to. What could I have done differently? Or what did I learn about this other person? So that's another way of doing it. For the supervisor before I started at the company. Oh, okay, Erica. Okay, good. So you have a track record with that. That's great. The next question comes in. I got lots of thank yous. You're welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're liking it. Alan asked the question, what should you do when you realize you've promoted the wrong person? Alan, your worst case scenario way down the line when they continually fail is to offer them their position back. But you really don't want to do that. What you've done, Alan, is you've made a poor hiring decision that you need to unpack a little what went into that decision that you can correct. First and foremost, while you're in the middle of the pain, let's solve the problem for the next time. And that is, what did you do wrong? What didn't you ask? What should you have been looking for from this particular decision that you made? So make sure that you unpack that first and foremost. The other thing is you just need to buckle down, and this is the price that you pay for that, of really working with the person. I'm sure that person can reach a mediocre level of supervisor or manager, whatever that role is. You just need to get clear on that expectation and start working on the ways that they can get there. You need to be flexible with working with other people, especially poor performers, because they may have less strengths or weaknesses or more glaring weaknesses that affect the particular position that they're in for. So you want to be flexible with it. So the ways that you've done it before probably aren't going to work as well. So work with the person, identify the strengths and weaknesses, and use those strengths as much as possible to cover up for the weaknesses and get them to where they are. But you're going to need to work an individual action plan. This is, like I say, the price you pay, and this is how you're going to learn your lesson in the future. So unpack what's going on and went into that decision, and then work with them on the plan moving forward. Arsalan asked the question, how to keep oneself motivated under pressure and during days which do not go your way. When days don't go your way, the old adage of, getting back on the horse, that's important. When things don't go your way, oftentimes I would take a small item that was on my to-do list and I would just get one thing done out of the way successfully. And that was me getting back on my horse. But when things don't go your way, you need to take another action. I think it was Winston Churchill that said, if you're going through hell, don't stop. You got to keep going, otherwise you're going to stay there. So take that next action that you have on your to-do list or something and get yourself back going. Now, when you're motivated under pressure, one of the big things to do, Arsalan, is to work on individual little milestones. So if you have a huge amount of things on your plate, if you're under pressure, okay, in the next 10 minutes, I need to get this done, get this done, get this done. And that takes your mind off of the pressure of getting the final result done and focuses you individually on those things. It helps you work better. It helps you focus on things so you're not misplacing your focus on the end result and not what's right in front of you. But it also will show you a little bit of success on the way. So work on the milestones in that respect. I've gone a little bit over time. I know there's a ton of questions down below. I will go ahead and pop down into the comment section after this and tackle those questions. It was great seeing everybody on here. It was great seeing those feedback team members on here as well. And I will talk to you guys next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.